Might have some background noise because the youngest two don't have class, and then the other two that are here are just really rude. So put that together, and there tends to be a lot of back chatter, lots of noise in general. So, all right, well, we're gonna finish up today with again what would be chapter 7 if we were doing a book, and that is about the impacts of social media. So, last time we looked at what makes social media social media, what is the definition, what are the key characteristics, and then we looked at kind of a brief history of how we got to where we are today, how we evolved to the social media that we have today. As the kind of the title would imply, right, one of the most important aspects of social media is the impacts, right, and the issues that arise once we start seeing the proliferation of social media, once we start seeing the ubiquity of social media, and how influential and important it is. It creates new problems for a society. It creates new issues that we need to address. So what are some of those issues that are specific to social media? One is the idea of user-generated content and intellectual property rights. Intellectual property rights are a subject that, if any of you go to law school, I would strongly urge you to think of that as a primary focus of your law practice, because that is the future of law. The biggest cases of your lifetime are going to be dealing with intellectual property rights and this kind of an idea. One of the things we talked about with what makes social media is that the fact that the meaning is derived through the dialogue, right? The meaning is of an idea comes from the back and forth, the engagement. So when you think about your social media networks, your Instagram, your Facebook, your Twitter, they don't make anything, right? It's entirely user generated. You're the one making that, caption. You're the one taking that picture. You're the one creating the content, but do you own it? And should you own it? If we think of this outside of social media, if we think of this outside of interactive media, the answer is, well, duh, of course you do, right? If I write a song, right, I have ownership of that song. I created it. It is mine. I own the rights to that song. But for some reason, when we're dealing with a social media platform, that very basic premise of intellectual property rights gets twisted and contorted in bizarre ways. Some of you might be aware, but what will never stop shocking me is how many people aren't aware that when you create an Instagram account, right, you sign their terms of service, right? You click on the I accept their end user agreement. One of the things in that end user agreement, one of the things written into that small print that nobody ever reads and they just clicked I accept on, is that once you post an image to Instagram, you give up your rights to ownership of that image. Instagram owns that image the moment you upload it. That throws a lot of people off because, again, in any context other than social media, that would never, ever, ever happen, right? That would never happen. Again, if I write a song, but I play it for the first time at a bar in Rockford, that bar doesn't own the song, right? They don't own the song because that's where I played it, right? I own the song. I created it. It's entirely mine. But for some reason, when we're using a social media platform, those rules are different. That's part of the reason why, we mentioned Flickr last time, and part of the reason why Flickr is much more popular with professionals is because you own your content. Same with Vimeo, right? Vimeo does not take ownership of your content. YouTube can make a claim to your content. Instagram flat out owns your content. Twitter and Facebook can make claims to your content. And this is a whole new kind of ball of wax. It's a whole different field of questions that we need to deal with in both legal and ethical concepts and legal and ethical terms. Another huge issue that comes about from social media is an expectation of privacy. And what kind of an expectation you should have. What's a reasonable expectation of privacy? Again, contrast social media ideas of privacy with non-social media ideas of privacy. Right? If I'm walking down the street and you take my picture, you have the right to do that, right? Because I'm on the street, I'm in public. So remember that the next time you're watching a Karen freak out video and somebody's like, you can't record me, you can't record. Yeah, I can. Actually, you're in public. If you're in public, I have every right to record you. I have every right to record you, to take a picture of you where you're in public, right? But when you're in private, you do have a right to privacy, right? If I'm inside, we're going to talk about this when we talk about the specific laws and court cases that have come up regarding media. But if I'm inside my home, I have a right to privacy. I have a reasonable right that you aren't going to know what I'm doing inside my home, nor should you. But with social media, again, that expectation varies significantly. It's amazing to me how many people in the Freeport community know me and have never met me, because all they know of me is my social media presence, right? Because if I say something on Twitter and other people retweet it, it's going out to an audience I never intended, right? It's going out to people I never wanted to see it. If I post something on Facebook, right, I have a curated list of people who can see those things. But that's not always rock solid, right? People can violate what I set as the limits on that, the privacy on that. Cyber stalking is a very real concern in the modern day. This is going to sound really bad as I say this out loud, but it used to be a lot harder to stalk somebody. And now with social media, it's frighteningly easy. It is frighteningly easy to know almost every detail of a person's life. And admittedly, a lot of that is our own fault, right? We put our own business out there for the most part, but not entirely, right? Not entirely. I know people who don't have a social media presence. They don't have any social media accounts, but their friends talk about them on social media or post pictures of them on social media. So they didn't sign up for any of this, but now their shit's out there, right? Now their information is out there. That's icky. That should feel icky to you, right? Because if it's your own doing, there's consequences to our behavior. And it's not your own doing, you should feel uncomfortable with that. The state of Illinois, for example, just recently, along with several other states, filed a lawsuit against Facebook. Facebook had a facial recognition feature in their terms of service, where if I uploaded a picture of the class, Facebook would automatically tag you in those pictures. It would use facial recognition software based on other pictures that it had of you, and it would tag you automatically. So whether you wanted to or not, you were going to be tagged in those pictures. The state of Illinois sued and said that violates our law. The state of Illinois does have a law against exactly that kind of action. It's a digital right to privacy law that we have in the state. And they won, right? The state of Illinois won the case, and Facebook now has to pay Illinois citizens who were victims of this, who were basically, if you were a Facebook user for this certain period of time when they were implementing it, then you're entitled to part of that compensation. But that's just Illinois. Not every state has that kind of protection. And so there's a lot of people who they're in real terms, they were put in danger because of a lack of concern for your privacy by Facebook. If you have a restraining order against someone, right, and you've done everything you can to scrub your presence from their life, you've done everything you can to hide from them. Well, now Facebook can tell them where you are just based on this picture, right? And that's ew, right? That should be alarming. Another huge issue that comes up when we deal with social media is that marketing has now shifted from being a viral thing to being a covert thing. Viral marketing is the idea that I make an ad that's so popular, weird, entertaining, whatever, that you share it for me, right? The old way of advertising is that I would pay CBS $2,000 to air my commercial 5 times in this week, right? I would have to pay for access to that message getting out. Well, viral marketing is the idea that, like, oh no, I just convince you to share it, free. You're just going to share my message for me because you find it interesting or entertaining or funny or whatever. Now, however, with social media, it's going into even further to being more covert, being more hidden. We're not just sharing ads, we're sharing things we don't realize are ads. And that's, again, something we need to have a real serious conversation with as a society. It's one thing to share a funny Snickers commercial that is a Snickers commercial, because whether, even if your goal is not to promote Snickers, you at least know that's what's happening. But when you're sharing something that you have no idea is promoting Snickers, then you're being used, right? Then you're an unwitting accomplice in this, right? And again, that's an ethical question we need to deal with. That is something that we as a society need to say, how comfortable are we with this? And it's not just in terms of marketing, but it's also in terms of the president's favorite phrase, fake news. It's alarming how many people can't tell the difference between an ad and a news article. It is shocking how many people will share something on social media because it looks like legitimate news, but it's actually just an ad, right? Like, I don't know if you guys watch a lot of television, but I do, because I don't have friends. And there's this series of commercials that plays every night in the 5 o'clock block by Brand Power, right? And it's usually just this middle-aged white woman standing in a grocery store aisle, and she's talking about how great this cleaning product is, right? Or this one thing. And it's shot and it's edited and it's the graphics, everything about the production is meant to look like it's a public service announcement, right? Everything about it is meant to look like it's from a consumer advocacy company. But in reality, it's just a marketing ploy, right? It's not a public service announcement. It's an ad. It's just an ad. But they say it's brand power and it's, it's this and it's that. They're tricking you into believing it's news when it's really advertising, right? And again, that's something that becomes a lot easier with social media, right? It's one thing, because if you're watching television, when it's a commercial and when it's programming. When you're scrolling on Twitter, you don't, right? If the tweet is sponsored, if it's paid for, it's marked as sponsored. On Instagram, it's marked as an ad. But that's only if it's a paid sponsorship or a paid ad. If it's your cousin Sally sharing something because they think it's real, but it's really an ad, it's not marked, right? So you're inadvertently marketing for other companies, and that's concerning, right? Yes, again, just like with expectations of privacy, some of this is our own fault. There is fault with the users as well here, because we should know better than to just blindly trust things, right? We should, but we don't, right? Everybody's human, right? We're human beings, and human beings, even when we're incredibly skeptical and we're great critical thinkers and we're very cautious, we can still make mistakes. We can still get tricked, right? So yes, some people are willful dupes, but some people are not willful dupes. And that's why we have to look at this as a, not just a people are dumb issue, but a, they're kind of, sometimes you gotta blame the drug dealer too. It's not always the drug user. And the last issue is my trust issues. You can't trust anyone or anything on social media. I'm sorry. I know it's terrible, it's horrible, and I'm just a bitter old man, but for fuck's sake, it's so easy to lie. It's so easy to lie on social media. I mean, in the last decade, we've had to create the term catfishing for exactly this reason, right? There's no one you interact with on social media that you can be sure is who they say they are. No one. And that is something people should remember more, because they tend to put a lot more trust in strangers on social media than they should. You know, not only are there obvious trust issues like, you know, people who are scamming you for money, but there's also trust issues in terms of people who just put on a different persona online. Yes, there's catfishing and there's financial scams and there's all that kind of stuff that it goes to that clear, this is wrong kind of territory. But there's also a lot of posturing in social media. There's a lot of people putting on an air because it's mediated, because they have the safety of that screen, because they're not talking to another person, they're talking to an app, right? You know, one of the number one rules about local media is you never look at the comment section, right? Never look at the comment section on a news story, on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Never, ever, ever look in the comment section, because it's amazing how many people in that comment section are experts. And it's amazing how many people in that comment section are unabashedly racist. It's amazing how many people in that comment section are unabashedly bigots. These people are real, but they would never say that offline. They would never act like that offline, ever. Yeah, I back in the good old days, one of my favorite hobbies used to be going on the Journal Standard's website, and getting into arguments with idiots in the comment section, because, you know, I was young. It's before I had kids. It was back when I needed hobbies. And it's amazing how vitriolic and mean people could be on there. But only the ones who had weird screen names, right? Like the ones who signed in with, you know, like Patriot 795, right? Or Tom Paine 1776. Those guys were real badasses. They knew everything, and they were going to call you out, and, you know, you couldn't tell them anything, and they're and you punk, you burr. The people who had their actual name attached to their account were always a lot more level-headed. They're always a lot calmer in their responses to things. That's part of the reason why the Journal Standard and a lot of other sites have now, you know, they've gone from just anybody can sign in and comment to now you have to attach it to a Facebook account. You can still fake a Facebook account and get on there, but it's at least a little bit of a level of accountability for people. You can create entire Twitter profiles, entire Twitter personalities, where nobody will know who you are. So there's no accountability. You know, one of my favorite things to talk about when we get to the unit on laws and regulations is, you know, how much people misunderstand the First Amendment. You know, the First Amendment is brilliant in its simplicity, because the First Amendment protects you from governmental harm, right? The First Amendment protects you from the government. The government cannot infringe on your freedom of speech. And it's brilliantly executed, because the whole idea of the First Amendment is that the government shouldn't need to. Because if you say something vile, if you say something horrendous, if you say something that deserves punishment, your peers will punish you. Shame will punish you. Social, you know, ostracism will punish you. You don't need the government to punish you. But that goes away when there's no possible way you can be shamed, when there's no possible way you can be socially ostracized. When we move our discussions to the social media realm, we lose the power of the First Amendment. It's also worth mentioning at this point that the First Amendment does not apply to private agency. So when Twitter bans you, they aren't violating your rights. You don't have a right to Twitter. Again, another phrase I like to say often is you have a right to speech, but you don't have a right to my microphone. Twitter can't stop you from saying whatever the hell you want, but they don't have to let you say it on their microphone. Same with Instagram, same with Facebook, same with YouTube. You don't have a right to social media platforms. They're private entities. You have a right to not be arrested for what you say on those platforms, but you don't have a right to use those platforms. And social media just, it encourages some of the worst in people. You know, I'm sitting here right now, I'm looking at my 17-year-old who is the worst example ever of social media assholishness. Yeah, you. Yeah, you. Your face. You're the worst. You are the worst. She gets on social media and she's all like, yeah, bitch, what up, 420, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, she's a wimpy ass little white girl from Byron, you know, but like she tries to act tough. She tries to act like she's all kinds of gangster. And it's like, no. You have braces. No one's scared of you. And again, we all do at some level. We all do at some point. We behave differently when we're using social media. This is not to say that these issues mean social media should go away, right? I'm not one of those people, and I think the people who do argue that social media is bad are kind of missing the point. Is social media bad? No. Is it good? No. It just is. Social media is like literally everything else in this universe. It can be used for good, it can be used for bad, but it's not the engine itself, right? It's not social media itself that has that quality. It is people that have that quality and their ability to fuck up good and normal things with great ease, right? With a lot of ease. Any questions from any of you guys or thoughts even? This is a conversation I usually like to have in person so that we can like really get into a discussion of back and forth, but you know, stupid Corona. Sure. Lindsay asked, do you think we would ever make it more good than bad? Sure. Yeah. We got to stop letting everybody in the sandbox. There's a financial motivation for Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all the rest to allow douchebags to keep being douchebags. I think social media can be very, very good. You just have to treat it like you would a playground. You know, it's not, you kick the bullies out. You don't accommodate them. You don't defend the bully's right to be a dick. You just say, all right, well, then you can't play on my playground. But Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and the other social media networks are so reluctant to boot people because they don't want to lose money. And so, yes. Can we? Yes. Would we? Yes. But it's going to take a culture shift more than anything. Anybody else? Okay. All right. Well, like I said, usually this is a discussion, so we take a lot longer, but it is what it is. We are what we are. So on Monday, we do not have school. Okay. Monday is what some people call Columbus Day. I will not call it Columbus Day because no, it is absolutely not. That's absurd. It's ridiculous. It has never stopped bothering me that we even have Columbus Day, let alone that we quote unquote celebrate it. But so there will be no school Monday. So we won't have class, obviously, which I know you're really, really uncomfortable with. I know you guys, it's going to be weird not having class because we're so good about always having class. But we won't have school on Monday. So I will see you guys all again on Wednesday, hopefully in person, but who knows? We'll see what happens. Maybe, well, maybe one of my other 38 kids will also get sick. So we'll have to see. So. All right, guys. Don't forget to, if you have not yet started your journal for your media use diary, do that now. Like, start now, because it is due a week from today. So might wanna get on that. Okay. If you need anything over the weekend, I'm available via email. I might not get back to you right away, but I will get back to you. So otherwise, I'll see you all on Wednesday.